Jane and Missy. We are about to start. This is a warm welcome to all of you. We are beginning in a moment. As you settle in, feel free to introduce yourself on the chat. As members come, we are going to start the meeting in less than 1 minute from now. So feel welcome. Okay, Lynn, are you there?
Yes, Dr. Jane.
We should be beginning now. Could you have my projections on?
All right.
I hope you are able to hear me. Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to this ICF International Coaching Week. My name is Dr. Jane Amisi, and I'll be your moderator for now. Can I go to the next slide, please? All right, we've got a few international coaching presentations going on throughout the week, and we are into another exciting session. Scroll down, please. Yes, we have had team coaching the entity, which is coming up on 14th, which is tomorrow. We've got still have human-centered AI, how HR and coaches can drive ethical and high-impact transformation. Hello? All right, good. So before we get into the real matter, let's dive in and let's see what we've got today. Today we've got the Pan-African Christian University with us, who are running a global initiative to equipping kingdom leaders through Christ-centered coaching, a very interesting topic that we are going to have and a very interesting discussion we are having today evening. Yes, please. Great. So on behalf of the Kenyan chapter, thank you very much for joining this evening webinar, Coach, Educator as Coach, Transforming Education Through a Coaching Approach. My name, as I mentioned earlier, is Dr. Jane Missy. I am a civil servant. I work in the Ministry of Lands, and I am passionately leadership development and personal coach, a member of the ICF Kenyan chapter. It is my pleasure, it is my privilege and honor to welcome you to this important conversation. This session is part of our ongoing celebration of International Coaching Week for this year 2026, this being our 4th webinar. Throughout this week, we have been hosting conversations that explore coaching as shaping leadership, organizations, education, and communities. We've already had rich discussions on DIAB, adolescent coaching, and intersection of coaching and public speaking. Tonight, we turn our attention to education. Educators like me, I'm sure, are excited about that. And we are not yet done. We still have 3 exciting sessions coming up. We have team coaching, coaching the entity, not just the individuals. human-centered AI, how HR and coaches can drive ethical, high-impact transformation. And a very special session is coming forward next week. That is Beyond Management, Coaching as New Leadership Standard, which features Abraham Ongege, Acting CEO and Head of Personal and Private Banking at Stanbic Bank, Kenya. A conversation you do not want to miss as we explore what leader as coach looks like at the highest levels of business. Feel free to register. The sessions are appearing on the link. And before we begin, a brief housekeeping note for all of us. This session is being recorded, and as such, ICF Kenya Charter Chapter's online meeting policy statement applies. Please keep your microphones muted unless you are asking a question. If you have a question or comment during the session, please type it in the chat and they will be addressed at the appropriate time. Tonight's conversation is quite meaningful because educators shape future of in every single day, and we are exploring what becomes possible when that role is approached through a coaching lens. To guide us through this conversation, we are honored to be partnering with Global Coach Initiative and Pan-African Christian University in a panel discussion. I'm now pleased to hand over to our moderator for the evening, Coach Coletta Macharia. Coletta, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jane Amisi. What a pleasure it is to be here today with all of you. Good evening and welcome to this conversation today. And before I go very far, I would like to just have some introductions of the organizations that I represented here, Global Coach Initiative and Pan-African Christian University. Of course, you've heard about ICF. And so I'm going to request David Cook to tell us just a little bit about Global Coach Initiative. Take 3 minutes, and then Gilbert will tell us about Pan-African Christian University so that we all know who's in the room, and then we can go ahead with the discussion.
Thank you, Coletta. Greetings, Jumbo. I think I'm safe on my Kiswahili right there, so probably don't want to go much further. I've had the opportunity to travel to East Africa, to Kenya, Uganda, particularly multiple times. So it is a joy to be on this call. And thank you, Dr. Amisi and ICF Kenya, for just elevating coaching and all the work that you're doing to help to bring coaching to bear in East Africa. And so really a joy to be here. Global Coach Initiative is an initiative that started about 2 years ago, and really there's sort of three sort of core heart issues within that is that how to bring coaching that is affordable, contextual, and accessible. So I'm a professional certified coach. I've been coaching for over 20 years. I train coaches. I've been training coaches for about 15 years. And I'm a mentor coach. I have a passion for coaching. I've been a lead pastor of a church in Northern California for 28 years. And I have a passion for leadership development. So my focus has been around how do you raise up leaders? And the thing that I discovered, how I got into coaching, was this question: how do people change? And that was over 25 years ago. I was like, how do people change? And God opened doors, led me into the realm of coaching, and I got my first coach training. And I came to the aha moment, of which, if we're coaching, we always are looking for that, was essentially it's intentional, meaningful conversations. is the way that people change. That information doesn't lead to transformation. It's information plus contextualization plus application. Global Coach Initiative has a passion of bringing that skill set and that mindset of coaching into to train as many people as we possibly can, because I really do believe that coaching and a coach approach is an essential leadership skill in the world that we live today. In the shifting and changing that is going on, particularly with young leaders who expect to have a voice, that the internet and social media have taught them, I have a voice, I can share what I'm thinking and what's going on. And so that impacts it affects a global culture. So, Global Coach Initiative is about raising up as many coaches as we can to give that coaching mindset and skill set in a way that is accessible. That the trainings and the time that that people can have it, that it's affordable, that we seek to have a price point that helps people to engage with it. And it is contextual, is that we want that coaching because everything is contextual, right? Individually contextual into our own personal lives when we're in a coaching but also globally contextual. So that is the heart and the passion of Global Coach Initiative. Coletta Mashare is our executive director for Global Coach Initiative. Does a phenomenal and fantastic job. Also, Karen is on the call today. She is our executive assistant within it, that makes everything happen. Keith Edwards and his wife Esther, who's also on this. Dr. Keith and Dr. Esther are trainers who are skilled and wonderful trainers. And so it's wonderful to be here. Coletta, thank you so much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you very much, David. And what David did not tell us is that he is the visionary behind the Global Coach Initiative. So thanks very much. All right, Gilbert, tell us about Pan-African Christian University.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Coletta. And good evening, everyone, or good morning, good evening, good afternoon from where you're joining us. My name is Gilbert Angana. Currently the Dean of School of Leadership, Business and Technology at Pan-African Christian University, or popularly known as PAC University. A number of us, because of PAC University, have baptized us PACU, but we like to be known as PAC University as is. So PAC University is actually a leadership university, and the focus for us is, as per our tagline, where you see that where leaders are made. And I know a number of us traditionally have known us for theological studies because of our Christian anchorage. And for sure, a number of our driving programs, we have a whole school of theology that then has programs that run from PhD in theology to masters in theology, and of course other areas also in master's divinity. We have also a very transformational bachelor's program that has impacted many pastors across Africa, which we call the Bachelor's of Transformational Church Leadership, and of course various other certificates and diploma programs in that school. But also PAC University is known for leadership, and that is a school that I belong to. In fact, I dare say that PAC University leadership programs is one of the best leadership programs in the world today, both from a Masters of Arts in Leadership, a Masters of Arts in Educational Leadership Development, and of course the flagship one that is really known across Africa is a PhD in Organizational Leadership. And definitely we also have various other programs in diploma and certificate in leadership. So if you are looking for a place to do your master's in leadership or your PhD in leadership, PAC University is a place to be. But also we have the School of our School of Humanities and Social Science that hosts also a number of programs, including a PhD in marriage and family therapy, which is also one of the flagship programs across Africa. And then PAC University is one of the, it's one of the leading university that then helps to, train therapists, especially in family and marriage issues. We also have then masters, various masters in family therapy, in counseling, psychology, and so on. And of course, other programs that touches on communication, ICT, business, and so on. So if we are looking at PAC, PAC does not only offer theological programs, but it offers a whole bouquet of programs across various areas. And really, the most important part for us as a Christian university is to drive leadership development in the world. And that's why the partnership here with the ICF Kenya chapter, and of course, Global Coach Initiative is to really drive that agenda. The programs that we've started also inculcating within PAC, especially from a coaching perspective, are aimed at building capacity of leaders and enhancing them, especially from some of the coaching competencies that we'll be discussing here. So that we can build wholesome leaders who are transformative, both in their communities and also in different spaces that they come from. So, Coletta, let me stop there. But I guess that then gives a gist of why PAC is interested in this conversation, not only by the fact that we are training leaders globally, but also because it's one of the initiatives that we also want to start transforming ourselves internally to develop coaching mindsets that then will ensure that we also, pass the same to our students and, of course, the stakeholders and community that we engage with.
Wow, thank you very much, Gilbert, for that. And I saw that Jared, one of our founding ICF chapters, says that you should also collaborate with Toastmasters, where leaders are made. So there are several places where leaders are made, and it's really good to be here amongst people who are very, very passionate about leadership formation. And so for tonight's conversation, we're going to have a panel discussion. And let me just introduce the panel discussion by way of making a very brief PowerPoint presentation here. And if you're an educator and you resonate, I hope that you will put something in the chat and tell us whether what is being said resonates with you or not. And so we've been looking at some studies that talk about the education space. And one of the things that we've seen, according to a UNESCO study, is that lecturers report severe emotional exhaustion and depersonalization. And there is another study from 2025 that revealed that excessive workloads is the primary risk factor for mental collapse. And the result, the impact on the students is that burnt out faculty are less available for mentoring, leading to direct student engagement. So still on that same study, we see a little more information on the overexhaustion, depersonalization, and reduced personal accomplishment. And I wonder if you're an educator and you're here, you just put something in the chat and let us know, is this, does it resonate? Is it still the case? Or are these just studies that don't apply to us here? The other issue, identity fragility. Academic identities are rendered fragile by audit cultures and performative demands. And then we have gendered barriers. Women leaders navigate cultures that suppress their full voice. Coaching processes these institutional risks. And that is a study by one Rosemary Nakijoba, a very recent study, case study from Uganda that I shall be talking a little bit more about later on. Then we have the issue of weak succession. Leadership often responds to pressure rather than strategic direction, hindering systemic reform. And so the pivot that we are talking about, a coaching mindset, yeah? And I want to pause it there before we even go very far into that pivot and invite the panelists so that we can, with the background of that information that we have seen, we can have a discussion that really helps us see, what sense does it make for us, and what are some of the suggestions, or how are we thinking that coaching can come in and be part of the solution. And so we have our three panelists there, Keith Edwards, Gilbert Angana, and Jackie Wasike Sihanya. And I will let them introduce themselves in a minute, just very briefly. And I'll start with you, Keith. As you introduce yourself, tell us why today's conversation is important for you.
Well, thank you for letting me be part of this discussion, important discussion that I think needs to be had and is being had, well, around the world. I live in the United States, and so this conversation is important here as well. I recently got off a conversation with a professor, and he was talking about how to apply coaching in the educational field. So this is really important. It's important for me personally. A little context for me is I have a degree from the University of Valley Forge, and then I began later on became a pastor, and then got a master's degree in counseling. My wife and I have been in pastoral ministry for 38 years. And after that degree in counseling, I thought, hey, that was going to be the answer to some things for me. And then I got involved with my doctoral studies, and which revolved around coaching at Regent University. And I spent some time leading churches and spent some time as a denominational leader, bringing coaching into coaching mindset into everything that I did. And at some point, something switched along the line where everything that I did became coaching. There was coaching conversation and everything. And I began to teach in academia and do mentoring. I became very passionate about health and sustainability of pastors and leaders. And so all of those things have fed into this. And so now my wife and I, we train along with Global Coaching Initiative and other organizations in coach training. And we have found that it has transformed the way people think, the way people talk, the way people consume information and then apply it, and their lives become transformed. And watching all of that happen, coaching has taken a deeper root inside of us personally. So that's why this is an important conversation I think that we can have. Later on, I do want to talk to people who are teaching, along with myself, to just say it is so important, and that the coaching field does not come in and try and replace the teacher. That is not the agenda behind this. It's a partnership that I think brings not just information, but tags with that, so that there's real transformation that happens in people's lives. And professors or teachers can become more curious and can have conversations that work in people's hearts. So it's not about transformation or information for people's minds. I think we all got in it for that. All educators, I believe, got in it because we want to transform minds. The coach comes alongside and says, now let's talk about the whole person, and we want to transform hearts as well. So I want to stop there before going, but that's a little introduction about why I think this is important.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Keith. And Dr. Jackie, tell us a little about yourself and why this conversation matters.
Thank you very much, Coletta, and everybody else who's present here today. I am Dr. Jackie Wasike Sihanya, and maybe I could describe myself as a teacher turned coach via 25 years in the international corporate sector. And I'll have you, Gilbert and Jared, know that leaders are first made at home before they come to your university, before they come to Toastmasters. And I'm saying this because I am committed to developing a network of coaches to work with the next generation of leaders, the next generation of parents, the next generation of educators. And so this conversation is important because the education institution is not perhaps, next to parenting, is the most important institution as far as human development is concerned. Therefore, bringing every tool that is available to help them do this in the best way possible makes sense. However, for some reason, and obviously this is going to be part of the discussion, the education sector seems to be lagging behind. So I'm very, very thrilled that we are putting this on the table, and I really look forward to sharing insights and gaining insights from the panel and the participants as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And so, yeah, Gilbert, you introduced yourself earlier, so you can just go straight ahead and tell us why this conversation is meaningful for you.
Thank you, Coletta. And maybe just to say that I am a leadership coach first, then a teacher, and then a consultant in the area of leadership, and now a researcher also in that space. But as you can see, just when you shared the highlights of the presentation, there were actually many comments that were coming in terms of saying this is actually true. And I can assure you, having also just joined the higher education landscape from a teaching perspective over the last now almost a year, I can actually see the reality of what you presented. When we have educators with workloads that are crazy, in instances where now you find that they can't even do their own research or personal development. And of course, it's not like in higher education, it's even more complex because unlike other lower education areas, like in high school, in primary school, where when they have a break, during holidays, they actually have some 3 weeks, 4 weeks to relax. In the higher education space, that space does not exist. You find that break that you have is a break for marking, is another break for moderation, is another break for faculty engagements and teaching. So you end up working the whole year 24/7. Then you can imagine this is a facilitator who needs to go and engage with students. So how should that shift be is then what we are discussing today in terms of maybe sharing some insights on how educators can approach all these things that they're juggling within their space, using a coaching mindset in a way that will not necessarily also bog them down. And then we'll discuss more on that, because when a client, for example, in a professional coaching, when clients come to you and you have a coaching conversation, after that coaching conversation, you don't get the baggage of the client with you. The client leaves with their action that they need to be able to ensure that they sort out. So if we're able to transfer that mind shift to educators, so that as they come out of classroom, then they are coming out of classroom not with a burden of the students, but having challenged the student to think differently, then some things will shift slowly as we go along. And I think I'm looking forward to just sharing some thoughts around it, and also hearing from Dr. Jackie and Dr. Kay in this particular discussion.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. We can hear you're a man on a mission to ensure that the educator is relieved of some of those burdens that he or she carries, in the course of their work. And so yes, and as you're in the, participating in the audience, please just put in your thoughts there. If you hear anything that strikes you, or if you have a question, we're going to ensure that we have some time for Q&A after this conversation. But if you could just be keeping the questions coming, that would be great. So now our title for this webinar is The Educator as Coach. And I'm coming back to you, Keith, because of something you said earlier. So when we say the educator as coach, you already alluded that we are not saying we want to replace teaching with coaching. And I'm sure we are also not saying that we want all the educators to become ICF credentialed coaches, right? So what exactly are we talking about? Would like to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on that. And you also did talk about that we need both teaching and coaching. So while you're at it, please just tell us the difference between teaching and coaching.
Yeah, thank you. Simply, we do need to make a distinction here, but without bringing insult. So please hear my heart in this. And of course, what we say is it may be generic because I believe that we all got into it to help people succeed, to help them get from where they're at to where they want to go. But if you think about teaching, teaching is quite a bit about the teacher has information. Teacher needs to transfer information. So history lessons or mathematics or any of the educational skills that people need, the information people need, there's a transfer of information, it's transfer of knowledge. Coaching takes a different approach and can add to the teaching because it draws out insight from the person. So there's a proverb that says, the purposes of a man's heart are as deep waters, but a man of understanding draws them out. And so coaching can enhance teaching as to bring out of the student the important things, why they are involved in this subject, why it's important for them to succeed, what do they want to see later on, who do they want to become. The teaching also focuses on quite a bit of content. I know in my education, content is important. You've got to know theology. You've got to know the scriptures. You got to know the language. That's important content. Coaching focuses on awareness. Teaching focuses on answers that we need to give. So much of my early education was about memorization. I just memorized so that I could pass a test. But it would be helpful if somebody would have come alongside of me and said, why do we need to pass this test? What is the goal here behind passing the test? And that is the transformation that's going to happen because you're consuming information. And so coaching asks catalytic questions. The teaching is also very expert-centered. The teacher is assumed to be an expert. They are hired because they are an expert in something. And the coaching is learner-centered, so it's more student-centered. And I'm going to invite my educators to feed into this to correct me or help me in this conversation. I think teaching also measures information retention. Again, going back to passing a test. And coaching measures growth, ownership, and application. And so I just want to leave it there. There for you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Jackie, anything you would add to that?
I think Keith has put it pretty well that, education is all about information and knowledge sharing and all that. But when you look at coaching, it has the capacity or the potential to influence not only performance, which is
sorry, Jackie, you're muted now.
Sorry, but
Okay.
coaching has the potential to influence not just performance, which is important in teaching, but also developmental capacity. Because, and I don't know if you're going to share this research, but we know that coaching influences persistence, it influences self-efficacy, resilience, agency, solution-focused thinking, even psychological well-being. So all these things can come directly from coaching because of the nature of coaching, and they are not that easily influenced by teaching because of the nature of teaching.
Wow. Yeah, thank you.
Would it be all right if I want to respond a little bit to what you're saying? What resonated with me was the development piece, because all students enter into the education at a certain developmental stage, and they are growing over their years of education. And I love that coaching can come in at each of the developmental stages and take a person from where they are at and help them navigate the information that they receive. So I love what you said there.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Gilbert, any addition?
Yes, and I just want to give maybe some a bit of example in that, not to repeat what has been said, but I just want to give an example in today's landscape, especially in the higher education. You find that at postgraduate level, there is a lot of facilitation, and not necessarily the aspect of teaching, direct teaching, but it's more of facilitating. In our case, we call it collaborate. Our class we call it collaborate class, and what that helps is it helps shift the mindset of the facilitator that they are not there to really drill in their knowledge or the theoretical aspect of the course to the students, but they are there to be able to facilitate engagement and allow the students to construct knowledge together with the facilitator. So the facilitator then will guide some few aspects where they need to be able to emphasize some particular points. So which is a good approach that has some bit of coaching connotation in it, because there's the aspect of asking questions as you go along in the class, as compared to telling. There's an aspect of enabling as compared to directing, and there's an aspect of co-creating as compared to prescribing. But then there is an opportunity to go deeper with a coaching mindset if the facilitator then develop the coaching mindset, because then the type of questions will then be a little bit more different and deeper to ensure that there is proper engagement within the class. The type of the probes in enabling, where then the facilitator can be able to drill down more. Why is this important? Getting the motivation of the students. With a coaching mindset, then the facilitator can be able to then approach that conversation in a different way. So having a coaching mindset as an educator at that level then will enhance the facilitation capability of the facilitator at that level. But also where there is a bit of an issue, even today, in a lot of institutions of higher learning, is actually in the undergraduates, because most of the undergraduates are these students who are coming in from high school. So there is this mentality around notes in high school, and there you're given notes and so on. So when you come to undergraduate, find that many universities or institutions of higher learning, even colleges, still drum in that agenda of notes and so on. So you come into undergraduate and you have students have these expectations of, if you don't give notes in class, then there will be an issue. So if the facilitators at that level will be able to shift their mindset and introduce coaching into their class, then there will be a lot of shift even in terms of learning within the higher education sector, especially in the undergraduate. Because if you look at the landscape today in the undergraduate in Kenya and across the world, is students are coming there to just finish, they get their degree and so on. But in most cases, you find that the actual learning really doesn't really take place as much. There is more that can be done, especially unless in technical courses. But in a number of other cases, you find that even during exams, people are struggling to read so that they can pass. But if that mindset shift from the beginning in terms of how we engage with the students, then something will fundamentally shift even in the way the students approach assessments and different, because then the mindset is about asking questions. The mindset is about what I sometimes call social constructivism, where you construct knowledge together with the facilitator. The facilitator does not necessarily give, prescribe. The facilitator engages and allows the students to discuss and co-create, and then now gives them assignments that are more building their critical capabilities, critical thinking capabilities, as compared to just, assignments that test their knowledge, which is what even the education landscape in our country is trying to shift. So let me stop there, but at least then, you see how that the practicality of it in the current landscape, that if facilitators are able to start understanding the basic coaching competencies, then something will shift in the way they engage in classrooms, right from undergraduates.
Wow, thank you very much. Yeah, that's quite a lot that you've shared, and I would like to piggyback on that and hear from all you panelists. What would it take then for that shift to happen? Because it sounds like we are saying this is needed, this is needed. What would it take? And just look at our Kenyan context, right? And bear in mind what I'm not sure which of you mentioned about that power distance, that expertise, expectation of, the lecturer or the teacher comes in as an expert and the learner is the recipient of knowledge. How do we shift that? So I want to give that to Jackie to begin, and then we can have everyone weighing in.
Okay, thank you, Coletta, for that. I think that it has to be approached at many levels. And I say that because I think at the beginning, from the research that you showed and what Gilbert shared, we are talking about the conditions under which educators are operating, whether they are educators in the tertiary education or even educators in primary education. Too many students, not enough time to just pause and reflect and take a holiday. Really not being supported to do that. And when I look at the work that I do, I do actually do quite a bit of work in the education sector, but it is not with educators. It is mostly with learners, because educators will bring the learners because they think the coach can do something with the learners that will help the educators. So, a recent conversation I was having, the head of pastoral studies at a school was like, we are overwhelmed. How can you help us with these students? So they don't come and say, I am overwhelmed. How can you help me to manage my overwhelm? So I think that one of the things that we can do, especially as a coaching fraternity, is to speak better, maybe. I don't know if better is the right word, but to speak more about how coaching can actually help educators do their work better. And when you start off the conversation with, I need you to help me with my learners, if you go deep enough, the educator begins to recognize that perhaps they could also benefit from using a coaching approach. But I think that another important shift also comes from really asking the question and really thinking about what is the purpose of education? Yeah, because we are not, education is not preparing the children for the world of today. Education is preparing our children, our leaders, for the world of tomorrow. And we have seen from the research, we have seen that industry or the corporate sector has embraced coaching as a developmental tool and has gone quite far along that way. But education remains rooted in the transmission, obedience model, if I may put it that way, now that you talked about our culture. So there is a tension. And when you go into executive coaching, you will find young executives who are struggling because they don't know how to problem solve, because that was not required for them to pass their exams. They don't have resilience because they were always being told what to do. So really looking again at what is the purpose of education, aside from knowledge transfer, I think it's very, very important to pay more attention to the role of education in preparing future-ready learners. But then I think also, and I see this also in the parenting situation as well, I think because when you're in that situation, maybe as a parent or as a teacher, because you're already in a role that gives you certain rights over the children around you, it may be very difficult for you to imagine that you're the one, that you could be needing some help. Because I think if we were having this conversation about parents, I would say the same thing, that parents are quicker to bring their children, their young adults, their adolescents to coaching than they are to ask or to take coaching themselves. So maybe it's also just a question of creating more spaces where people can self-reflect, even before we talk about coaching, but really creating spaces where people can self-reflect. And of course, we cannot create those spaces if we are not giving educators holidays. So maybe I can stop there and allow the others to add on to that.
Wow, thank you very much. And if there are any education leaders, director level and whoever deans, listen to what Dr. Jackie has said. Your educators need holidays so that they can go and relax and reflect. Okay. Yeah. So Keith, what's your take on that? How do we begin to make that shift?
Well, I think it is information or education of the educational institution. We need to know who our end user is, and it's not the institution, it's the student. And as Jared put in the chat, teaching, lecturing, like training, takes capacity to a pinnacle of 22%. Coaching helps navigate around intrinsic learning that takes it to 80% plus. And to find those kinds of studies, I think, are important for educators to have and for universities and institutions to have. From a personal experience, I have degrees more in theology and pastoral ministry degrees, but none of that prepared me for the self-awareness or conflict navigation or emotional maturity that coaching taps into. The resilience, the systems thinking and adaptive leadership that was necessary. I received information about how to do things, but when it came to having my first board meeting and understanding the room, that was a long learning process. Coaching helps you learn the room. I like to think that you need a coach in the room every time there's a conflict, because they just read the room differently. They see they have the soft skills, or they hear things deeper than other people would. You need a coach in the room when you have strategic planning. If you're talking about vision and mission and values and all those things, you want a coach in the room. And so with students, I think it would be important to have a coach in the room. Now, I want to say this too. We're trying to sell coaching. What we need to do is just sell the results of coaching. What our hopes are with coaching. And because coaching gets confused. I was talking with an educator today, and he's saying we confuse it with sports coaching. In the United States, coaching is all about sports. And we need to help reframe that language or reshape that language, because even a coach in sports tries to bring out the best that's in that person. And that's what we do. So we can merge some of it, but not all of it. And so I think just clear communication, I think as Jackie talked about, clear communication is so important for us in this moment.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, Gilbert.
One of the things that I tell my team is amidst all the workloads that we have, I think we need to strive to give ourselves a holiday in our own way. And I like what Dr. Jackie has said in terms of institutions needs to give their educators a holiday. But I want to flip it and say that as educators, we can actually give ourselves a bit of a holiday amidst our workload when we entrench a coaching mindset and actually just apply the coaching principles in our engagement. For example, somebody will say here that I have a huge class of 80, 100 how do I engage with these people in a way that then, will drive value? And for sure, the easier way to be able to ensure that you finish your class is to come and lecture. And then, of course, you ask a few questions, and then the few people will answer. And then the class will go. 3 hours class will easily go. But have we really, impacted the knowledge? Have the students, the clients in this particular case, have they really come out of your class having engaged with knowledge in their own way, constructed it and deconstruct so that they're able to apply it? The reality is, in most cases, no. So then, with a coaching mindset, how can you be able even to change the design of your class engagement in a way that then will deliver impact? And this is where, for example, you can apply things like how do you then use group coaching? So if you have a class of 80, how do you apply the group coaching competencies to be able to maybe divide this class into small sections, allow them to engage, and then now bring them into together into the room, and then ask critical questions that then they will be able to respond, and then allow others to engage, so that then it becomes, by the end of your class, if you've not, first of all, it will reduce the burden for you to prepare for that class, because you are not preparing anything. You're actually preparing questions that you'll be able to engage with the class, and it relieves for you a burden of overnight sitting down, preparing notes and so on. But the only thing that you'll prepare are questions that are touching on the various topical areas that you want to cover, and of course some key concepts that later on at the end of the class, if you want to emphasize, then you can emphasize. So you're coming in fresh. You will have time in the earlier part to engage with your family, to relax, to do other things. And then you're coming into the class with that mindset where you're facilitating a process of learning. You're not necessarily, coming there to bombard with people with knowledge and so on. And when you use that design, then you find that then you also make your life easier as a facilitator, as an educator. And of course, this can be applied in various areas, whether you have a class, a big class, whether you have a small class. The burden of preparing for the class for educators is usually the one that takes a lot of time. And I'm sure, Coletta, for you as an educator, if you're going to, even as a consultant, to train the team the next day, you have all these overnight things that you're preparing, but ideally you don't necessarily need to prepare. You just need to prepare some key concepts and then questions, and then go there with an open mindset of allowing also people to construct knowledge. And I think that way we can give ourselves a holiday as facilitators in one way or another, in a small way, as we drive that agenda using a coaching mindset.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's,
Coletta, I want to advocate for all educators who have experience coaching to have conversations with other people. And I also want to advocate for those who are on this call, who are deans or academic deans or people who have influence, to get their professors or teachers or staff to experience coaching. We were having a conversation with one university academic dean, and they were saying that coaching makes a difference in staff retention. So if you want to make a difference, and I think universities struggle with that, staff, professor retention. And that is one way to allow them to experience coaching themselves. And when they do, they'll be able to say, oh, this is significant in my life, and perhaps will be significant and will make us a difference in others.
Fantastic. Yeah, so if you've experienced coaching, have those conversations with your colleagues or with the people that you're working with. And I want to share something here from that case study done in Uganda by one, I think is Dr. Rosemary. I will share my screen. In the meantime, I can see there are some things coming up there on the chat. Please take a look. I think there are beautiful conversations, beautiful comments that are coming from all over. Let me find that. that paper, Reimagining Academic Leadership, and this is the case of Uganda. It may be a little small, but I'll just read it. And this was a study, it was not a big study. The population was not big. I think it was eight lecturers from universities in Uganda. And these are some of the themes that came from that study. So one of the themes was emotional resilience and connection with self as a result of the coaching that these educators received. So coaching supported emotional healing, restored confidence, and fostered self-awareness, especially for overburdened leaders. And some of the quotes here, I didn't realize how disconnected I had become from myself. Coaching gave me permission to pause and ask, what do I need to be whole? And that's a female dean. The other theme, systems thinking and strategic clarity. Participants shifted from reactive problem solving to broader institutional and systemic thinking. And the quote there, coaching helped me step back and look at the system, not just my role. I now approach challenges more strategically. Another theme, gendered leadership barriers. Women used coaching to name and navigate institutional sexism, microaggressions, and self-doubt. I used to think I was the problem. Coaching helped me realize it was not just me, it was the system that made me invisible. And this was from a female head of department. She says, I have stopped playing small. Coaching helped me see that being diplomatic doesn't mean being silent. Legacy and succession planning. Coaching ignited a concern for preparing future leaders, mentoring successors, and building inclusive leadership. It is no longer just about how I lead now. It is about who I am preparing to take over and what culture I am leaving behind. We need to stop hoarding leadership. True legacy is preparing others to lead with integrity. And finally, coaching as leadership education. Coaching was seen as a deeper, more transformational form of learning compared to standard workshops or trainings. Trainings were useful for information, but coaching was transformative. I didn't just learn leadership concepts, I became a different kind of a leader. Leadership is not a one-time certificate, it is a journey. Coaching should be part of that journey, like a compass we return to. And I would like you to just sit with that for a bit, and we will share this research, the links with you so that you can dig into them and just sit with them some more and see what comes up for you. But I want to pause there at this point and hear what's coming up for you as you are sitting there and listening to these conversations and seeing the kind of results that are coming. So I would like to give my panelists a short break before we just come back to wind up with one more question for each of you and have participation from the audience and just hear what's coming up for you or what questions do you have for the panelists, so that we can address them and then we wrap up. Any questions? Let me see on the chat there. I see Jared Ouko, you're saying lecturers and teachers need to take a situational approach to lecturing, just like coaching. Teachers and lecturers need to know student learning style, auditory or kinesthetic, use group dynamics. Very true. Neema Mukuha, teachers in our context also have a lot of pressure to meet their main KPIs. That's true, which are excellent academic results. In reality, they will focus on what is measured. What practical coaching tools can they apply to improve learning outcomes? I think that's a fantastic question. And as I give you a chance, my panelists, to think about it and weigh in on that, I want to give David Cook a chance. I see you have raised your hand. So please share what's on your heart, and then I'll come back to the panelists to answer that question.
It's sort of a follow-up to that. Thank you, Coletta. the question that you just read, but I'm really curious with both Gilbert and Jackie, how has coaching in your both education and experience of that shaped or changed how you teach, how you function in the academy? Because there are expectations, there are standards that are required. But I'm just really curious of how the coaching skill set mindset has shaped in the context you find yourself, your approach to education.
Okay.
David, I think I'm going to go first because my answer is very quick. I'm an educator who is not in the academy. Uh, so maybe Gilbert is better placed to answer the question.
Okay, so I'll attempt to answer that, which is similar to a question that, I mean, a comment that was made earlier that I think by Nema that workloads and then the issues around pressure to meet the main KPIs, which is also what David is talking about. And the reality is that mindset alone of pressure to meet KPIs and KPIs that are skewed to a different direction is what is killing a lot of educational institutions, both at lower levels and even at higher education level. Because the idea is it's not about the performance KPIs, should be more of developmental KPIs, conversations that are more, I mean, KPIs that are more developmental towards the learning agenda and not necessarily towards the coverage of the syllabus. So you're told now you need to cover this syllabus, I mean, which is okay. You need to cover it. But then the conversation should shift, especially from a leadership level, to more of developmental conversation. What is the impact of learning in the classroom? What is being co-created in the classroom together with the facilitator? So when we start shifting that conversation from a leadership perspective, from the institutional leadership perspective, then the coaching mindset will be inculcated and the culture will be inculcated across the classroom spaces. But the classroom spaces, different facilitators can actually engage and try to shift their mindset. But if the performance KPIs still remain the same, where they are more technical, then the battle is lost, because eventually then the facilitator will shift into the status quo, which is then to drive the teaching agenda rather than to inculcate the learning aspect. And just to answer David, that in my class, and I've seen some of my students here, I really do not teach. I have a 3 hours engagement on questions. Like yesterday, I had the class that I had prepared just questions that will then trigger some discussions. And then we use those aspects that they are bringing out to then trigger some other questions. So you find that people are engaged in a class and 3 hours has gone and people don't want to leave the class, because it wasn't really about, driving information to them, but it was about them also sharing the experiences, applying it in their own organizations. And people come from different contexts, and then they see how it applies to different organizations. And then they say, okay, now I understand this concept better. Now I can relate to the different areas. So then that's how then a coach if you inculcate then a coaching mindset, then you're coming into the class really with an open mind, like you're coming in to have a conversation with a client. You don't need to know what has been happening with the client. Is you engage, ask questions, the client will be able to share, and then ask probing questions, the clients will be able to expound more. Then you dig deeper, and then the clients also come up with the way forward around, the various things that they brought. So at the end of the day, the clients leave there and say, okay, I had all these things with me, and I didn't think in that particular way. And that's what the experiences we get from clients when we engage with them. So you can imagine if that experience is felt in classroom, that I'm leaving this classroom much better in terms of understanding this, or with even, it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to understand, but even they're leaving the classroom with more critical thoughts around that area, so that they go and do more research, they go and do more, reading. When they come back again, now they have this wider scope of information to share with others. And I think that is the mind shift that we need to bring in our classrooms, and it will support us as educators to really remove the burden of, the burden that we have. You have to prepare like this, but you're coming to the classroom to engage and construct knowledge.
Wow, thank you very much. So perspective shifting, eh? Right, Jackie, you have your hand up, and I would request also from the audience, please just raise your hand and ask your question, because I know there are some things on the chat, but it may be difficult to sift through and see which one to ask. So Jackie, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Gilbert, for sharing your experience as an educator in the academy. I just wanted to add that much as it is important to have that conversation within the institutions do not operate in a vacuum, because those performance KPIs are being used at home as well. When I do work with adolescents, much of their pain comes from parents insisting on looking at school performance above everything else. So that conversation also needs to change. When you look at organizations hiring, they often lead or highlight or prioritize academic qualifications before they start talking about, like the character of the person. So that conversation also needs to change. And that's what makes it a bit complex. And I think for those of you in Kenya, you saw with the changeover from the old system to the new system that, it's trying to emphasize some of these approaches that we are talking about. Even parents were up in arms because the results are not, the exam results are not being presented as, A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, but speaking a different language that tries to look at the person holistically, and they just don't understand it. So it's a very it involves different stakeholders well beyond the education institution.
Wow.
And maybe Coletta, just to add that there is a misconception that when you use a coaching mindset in class, that it lacks rigor. And I think that's a misconception. So the KPIs for growth, development, some of the things that needs to be measured will remain the same, but coaching brings in a different way of engaging in a way that those same KPIs can actually be achieved, but in a different way, where the learners are also part of the conversation, and they feel that they are constructing knowledge with you rather than feeling that you're the one sharing. And today's society is about co-creation. When people feel that they are co-creating something with you, then they end up participating, they end up engaging more, and that's how you find that some of those direct frontline KPIs will change drastically because of just the approach that you use in terms of engaging on the same concepts around the classroom.
Yeah, so that sort of addresses the question of rigor. I see somebody has asked that. And so Rebecca Momo says teachers of all levels need to become coaches, especially now we are in the competency-based education. And yeah, that sounds like music to my ears. But there's a question here that I think it was Neema, a comment from Neema, and I would like Neema to unmute and speak a little more about this. Neema, you say you agree that educators and parents need to be more reflective. Education is one of the most influential socialization tools. We need to interrogate our education philosophy. We cannot make meaningful shifts without dealing with this as the root cause of some of our challenges in the education space today. Yeah, speak a little more about that, Neema.
All right, good evening, everyone. So I actually got to delve a bit deeper into this in my master's program in education, and I feel it's something we have not really cross-examined, both as educators as parents, as teachers, as students, if we look at our education philosophy, what is the goal? What was the goal when our education system was set up by the colonialists? What was the goal? It was really to produce civil servants and people who could work for the colonial government. It was very hierarchical. It was, it excluded others. It was not all inclusive. And that is something that we continue to do. Even if you look at the current CBC, there's still stratification in terms of resources. The better resourced schools will be able to achieve some of the projects and things that they need to be able to do. And those that are under-resourced, those students will continue to lag behind. So I feel that as long as we don't address the philosophy issue, then we will still continue to encounter some of these challenges, that the teachers are going through, with those KPIs of, you need to get certain grades, because that's what has been driving us all along. So I feel we need to take a step back, reflect, get back to what really is education. How can we make it more inclusive? And being inclusive will then mean, we're teaching to all the different learner styles, which I think Jared spoke about as well. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, just interrogating the education philosophy and thinking. And I like the question you asked, what is education? Yeah. And what is it meant to do?
Yeah, and maybe Coletta, just to say that at least for this country, there's a little bit of hope that the philosophy is changing, and that's the philosophy around CBE. I know, of course, with the quitting issues around it, but as we progress and apply it in the manner in which it should be applied, and also now with the philosophy changing, that means that teachers at lower levels also have to be supported from capability and leadership development to understand, because what at the core of CBE is the coaching mindset of a teacher. So if the teachers at lower level do not have these competencies, then what we are training them is we are giving them the methodological, pedagogical competencies without the coaching mindset. Then what happens is a translation of the other philosophy into this with a different change of grading system. And I think that's what needs to happen at both lower levels in terms of inculcating coaching mindset to teachers. And maybe as ICF Kenya chapter, this will be one of the corporate social responsibility that you may want to partner with institutions like us to then drive such programs to teachers at lower levels, especially public schools, to see how we can be able to start turning and giving them coaching competencies, at least in not from a certification perspective maybe, but just from a competency perspective.
Yeah. It sounds like, as coaches, as ICF, as people with both, coming from both ends, education and coaching, we need to be speaking more and we need to be more involved even with this competency-based education so that we can weigh in and bring in the missing part of the equation. Yeah. And I saw David Cook's hand earlier on. I want to give you a very brief moment to speak, and then we go into the final round of questions before we.
No, I'm good. I was responding to Hezekiah's comment in the chat around AI, which can take us, all kinds of places. But the bottom line is that AI cannot. There's going to be a greater demand for real. And that is even already being seen in younger generations who are rejecting AI and or holding it at a distance. And that's where coaching, I think, comes in. That's where intentional, meaningful conversations, and from a faith-based, intentional, meaningful, spiritual conversations, a chatbot does not provide that.
Yeah, very true. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And I'm very mindful of the time that we have. And I want to come back now to the panelists and give each of you a few seconds, like 30 seconds, to just share, okay, maybe 1 minute, to share with the educators in the room, all right? So there might be an educator here who's feeling the weight of the human condition that we mentioned about. We talked about that stress, that overload, the exhaustion, and all those things that really happen in the education, in the corporate, wherever you go. These things are there. But specifically for the educators who may be feeling that weight, what is one micro habit or one coaching-based technique that they can implement in their lives or in their classroom or in their office tomorrow morning that will sort of just bring a little bit of a crack so that some light can come in? Just think of one thing or even two things. Yeah.
Sure, I'll take a
Sorry?
shot at. I'll take a
Okay,
shot
great.
at.
Can start. Mhm.
First of all, thanks for having this conversation. In today's culture, and then I think this is global. Everything is changing because of AI, because of social media, and we are comparing ourselves to somebody's highlight reels. So therefore, we become intimidated, and now students are there. There's tension inside of their lives. There's fear, anxiety, all of those things. And when we can read the room, when we can read what is happening in culture, we can help students, young people navigate through those things so that they don't have to have an inferior complex. They can walk into what they're stepping into with boldness and clarity and confidence that they are pursuing the path that God has for them. I would just say that it is significant. Coaching is significant because it just changes the mindset. And when I teach with a coaching mindset, before I walk into a room, I'm pausing and I'm asking, who do I need to be today? And so that's the suggestion I would give to all of you is before you walk into the room or before you start the next conversation, pause, breathe, and ask the question, who do I need to be today? Who do they need me to be today? Who has God called me to be today? And a very simple tool that I like to use, and it may sound funny to you, but I will rub my fingers together, and it just reminds me, I am filled with the Spirit of God. I am confident, and I can speak with clarity. And just simple things, and it's just every time I rub my fingers together, I'm thinking, oh yeah, okay, I'm here for a reason, and I am confident in what God has for me. So it might be a simple tool that helps.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. You can even try it now over there and think, hey, I am confident. I have the Spirit of God in me. And then see what that does for you. Okay, Dr. Jackie?
Yes, actually, Keith, you said something very similar to what I was going to suggest, and it's all around posing. And for me, the simple tool that I would recommend, simply because change begins with me as an individual, is to breathe. And there is a square breathing technique that I practice it myself. I've just come back from a workshop where I was teaching people to do it, and they came back the next day and said it made a difference in their interactions in their households the night before. And this is just, like breathing into a count of 4. So in 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, rest 2, 3, 4. And you can repeat that as long as you can, depending on how much time you have. But just doing that helps to bring to your awareness, as Keith said, what you are carrying with you in that moment. And then if you go to the next step and ask yourself, what do I need to be taking with me into the classroom, into the lecture room, or wherever it is that I am going, begins to help you see patterns. And when you can see patterns, you can begin to change them.
Wow. Very, very practical. Breathe. Okay. Gilbert.
I think for me is to challenge, because I know an educator here tomorrow, they have notes that they've prepared, and in most cases you find that these are the notes that we use them over the years in this subject, in this unit. So maybe we just enhance it a little bit. So what I'll challenge you is look at your notes, come up with maybe 4, 5 questions at most, throw your notes off for tomorrow. Go in class with those 5 questions, ask, and then the answers that will come in, ask another question from there. Allow students to contribute. Ask them, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? By the end of that class, those 5 questions would have covered you the core syllabus for that day, for that unit that you wanted to cover. But more importantly is you'll have constructed knowledge with the students by allowing them to discuss and allowing them to challenge one another. And you'll be surprised how time will pass as a result of that. Rather than now you coming in and sharing your notes there. At the end of the day, they will pick the notes and then they will still go back and go and read and so on later on. But, give them notes later as part of the things if you want. But in class, forget the notes, engage with the 4 questions around it. And I think this for me is what I call the coach model for educators, where the C really stands for our work is to cultivate curiosity by asking questions in our teaching. The O stands for observing deeply by listening and beyond just the answers that they give and allowing others to also challenge the answers. The A is more about activating ownership. Let the student own their answer, their argument, even if it's a technical question, mathematics or what. Allow the students to come in front and do it, and then ask questions to challenge other students. Are you okay with this? So you'll find that things, ownership comes in. And then also C, the last C is construct. What I talked about is you're constructing knowledge, challenge, construct, what they call the challenge, the construction of knowledge. And this will stretch their thinking, it will stretch them in terms of to think further. And the H is harness reflection. Allow them pause in class and just let there be silence in class. And then now ask people, what are you thinking? And you'll be surprised on how, that class people would engage, people would, develop some critical thoughts, and they will enjoy coming to that class if just the shift of mindset changes from just you delivering to you just allowing the class to engage.
Yeah, throw off your notes and just go with a bunch of questions, powerful questions to ask your students. Those are really, really practical tips that we have received there. And I'm really, really grateful for each of you. Audience, why don't we show some love to our panelists today? They've done a great job just engaging with this very important topic and allowing us to take a peek from their own experience as, coaches and also as educators. And that has really been beautiful. And so thank you very much, Keith, Gilbert, Jackie. That was fantastic. Very deep insights, as David says there. And our audience, very, very grateful to you also for sticking with it. And now you might be asking yourself a question. Okay, so we've had all this discussion. Is this the end of it? As educators, how do we now ensure that we integrate all these thoughts and all these things that we have shared into our lives as educators? And we are not going to just leave you hanging. We have some ideas of how we can take this conversation forward beyond today. And one of those is that we have some very kind coaches here who have offered themselves to provide pro bono coaching in celebration of this International Coaching Week. But the coaching it's not going to take place today or even this week. It's, going to be arranged in the next 2 weeks. And there are those people who, signed up earlier for this. And so you are going to be contacted this pro bono coaching is going to be given to you. 2 sessions just to help you experience what coaching is and what effect it can have on you. So be on the lookout for that. And then we also have, as the Global Coach Initiative, we have prepared a masterclass, which is titled The Educator as Coach. And in this masterclass, it's 90 minutes, and we're going to be really going deeper and exploring what are these competencies, what is this coaching mindset, and how does it actually work, and what are some of these tools that can help me go deeper and be more effective as an educator. First of all, from a personal perspective, and then also the effect trickles down to your students. And so I've put a link on the chat there. If you're interested in taking this further, you're welcome to sign up for that masterclass. That's going to happen on the 2nd of June. And it's going to be, I'm forgetting the time. I think it's 6 o'clock, or no, I think it's 7 o'clock, like today, 7 to 8:30 p.m. East Africa time. So feel free to sign up for that so that you can go deeper in this conversation. And those who sign up, I mean, we're also interested in creating a community of practice so that we can really continue deepening these conversations. We do not want to just leave it here. We want to go deeper, we want to go broader and see how can we bring this wonderful tool called coaching into the education space in a bigger way, so that in the same way, like we said, the industries, the corporates, they have really embraced coaching. They seem to have a big appetite for coaching, which is evidenced by the growth in the coaching profession in the last few years. How can we bring this into the education sector so that we can also whet the appetite and have the education sector embracing and creating coaching cultures in the higher education institutions? So we would like to continue engaging on that. So when you complete that that form for getting into the masterclass, also indicate there's a place for you to provide information, whether you want to be in the community of practice, so that we can continue these discussions as well. And the other thing that is very, very exciting for those who want to go deeper and learn more about coaching and really embed this mindset, we have a class coming up at the Pan-African Christian University, the Certified Christian Leadership Coach certification. And I will invite Gilbert to come back for just 30 seconds and tell us about this class, so that anybody here who is interested, and you can also tell them how do they sign up for the class.
Thank you, Coletta. And then just quickly to say that we've partnered with Global Coach Initiative to really just bring coaching closer to us and develop as many Christian leadership coaches as possible. We know globally coaching is very expensive. And I think our partnership with Global Coach Initiative has really is centered around ensuring that we provide coaching certifications, leadership coaching certifications to Christian leaders at a very, very affordable rate of $1,500 for a certification. So if you are interested in joining the certified Christian leadership coach, which is an ICF certified certification coaching program, please let us know. You can link us through PAC, and of course, either through Coletta or myself, or various engagements in PAC. If you have, then we'll be able to ensure that you join in the next cohort of the class coming up in the next 2 weeks. So this is an opportunity, and this is one of those very affordable certification, coaching certification courses, and then we hope that we'll be able to, with time, also just scale it up and ensure that we develop as many Christian leadership coaches in Africa and, of course, in the world as we move along with this partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gilbert, for that. And thank you once again, everybody. You've been a fantastic audience. And I want to hand it over back now to Dr. Jane Amisi to come and give us closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Coach Coletta. That was a fantastic session, very insightful, and I believe transformative. Time, we are right on time, and just the last few words is that this is a reminder to us that our coaching sessions are still on, that we still have 3 exciting international coaching sessions ahead of us. Please continue joining us and inviting others as we celebrate the coaching impact across different spaces, just the way we have enjoyed the educational one. On behalf of the ICF Kenya chapter, thank you once again for being here. Have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you at the next session. Good night, everyone.
Good night, and thank you.
Good night.
Yeah, thank you very much. There's a message there on the chat from Lynn Gitahi to sign up for the remaining sessions. We're still going on with the International Coaching Week, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thanks, everyone.